Welcome back and thanks for staying tuned. Of course, it's still Rise and Shine this Monday morning. We're being live from Uyo on a beautiful hill somewhere in Ibiakuran. Well, we're about to delve into some conversations that have trended in the Nigerian space. And we need to get some direction as to why, the federal government is even allowing these things to go at the pace that it is going. We have a very astute analyst who is going to join us this morning all the way from Abuja virtually. We have Bash Olashukbo, human rights advocate, security, peace and development specialist, is joining us all the way from Abuja this morning. You need to get people that have been vested in this line for the longest of time to have these discussions. Good morning, Mr. Olashukbo. Good to have you on Rise and Shine this morning. Thank you so much. I also have with me here Ime Emmanuel, so it will be both of us having the conversation with you. That's fine. You're welcome. Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Olashukwu. How is Abuja this morning? It's raining heavily here in Akwa Ibom. So how is Abuja? What's happening on that end? Well, it has rained a little and it's still drizzling now. Okay. People are already off going to their offices and we look forward to a beautiful week. We look forward to a beautiful week. Absolutely. Okay. So there's been a lot of things happening. Last week, the trend conversation was about the National Assembly and the RMAFC trying to tell Nigerians that they earned 1,063,000 naira as their monthly salary. That's with other benefits accrued. But we also had a sitting member of the National Assembly actually come out to say that he takes home 21 million naira at the end of every month. Now this is brewing a controversy within the Assembly that we do not quite understand. We want you to run us through your thoughts with regards to this. Is the RMAFC pitching Nigerians, the National Assembly against Nigerians, or what exactly is happening there? Who is lying to us or who is speaking the truth?
Yeah, thank you very much. I think the reality is that the Revenue Mobilization and Allocation Group is trying to tell us what they think they should reveal to us on paper. What we are getting from the National Assembly, where people have always been very circumspect in terms of the information they share in the public space concerning the take-home of our elected representative, is also that they are also trying to protect their own interests. The reality is quite different from what the Revenue Mobilization is telling us, because the truth of the matter, when you look at it, they understand our environment. We live in a space where people hardly read, and those who read don't do a lot of critical thinking and analysis of what they read or the information made available to them before they jump into the public space to share information and talk as if they have all the details about what way they are discussing. The reality is that, and that is the question I will put forward to Nigerians, if what a senator goes on with is just $1 million plus, like they told us, and that is the reality and that is the truth, then the question is, why is it that people go to any length to the extent of killing, selling properties, taking loans, taking oaths, doing a lot of things to just get there? So that tells you that there is more to it than they are making us to believe. But my own point this morning is a little bit different from what we are looking at, even though it's also attached to it. The real problem we have in the National Assembly is not also this their salary and allowances. We should go to the real review of the oversight functions they are supposed to be carrying out. And the reality is that since 1999, maybe the first group, 1999 to 2003, were not all that deep into it, but subsequently, it has become a big racket for people who serve in different committees to go ahead and start in the name of oversight functions, exercising their constitutional responsibility to carry out oversight function vis-a-vis what the executive is supposed to do, and use that to terrorize, to harass those who are heading some of the ministries, the agencies that are supposed to be providing us leverage on whatever the executive has been mandated to do. And if you meet with some of the persons who are the director generals or head of ministries and agencies, and they tell you the truth of what is going on, and this is not going to be too difficult to find out. Get some of them who are retired, who are bold enough, who are no longer in those positions, and they will tell you what they went through when they were in those positions in the hands of people who come in the name of oversight visits to find out what you are doing. If you don't get Ghana Must Go ready to at least settle them, the next thing is that they go on there and say, oh, so person should report to this committee. We are carrying out investigation on this and that. And that is the reality. That is one aspect of it. The other aspect is also the staff and the support staff available to each of these legislators. Go and find out. Most of them, when you even go to National Assembly, you find 8. You have the documented ones and the undocumented ones. The documented is are those who are lucky that they have been put on the payroll officially. The undocumented ones are people that our elected representatives will just on their own say, come and stay with. While those ones are working there undocumented, the number of documented persons each person is supposed to have is there. The most often you discover is their family members they put there. That's the reality. I've had people who work there some years ago when all the staff working
get Mr. Olasupo back, and he was making, really great point to reason why they will want to increase the wages of the salary, because looking at from what you just said, if you go and you don't get Ghana Must Go, you'll be called into the committee, and looking at the supporting staff structures of these senators is something again to question. And I would like to okay,
he's back on air. All right, sir. Sorry, we had a network glitch. You can go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is that I've also had the opportunity of meeting with people who work in National Assembly, that even our elected representatives, the money they are supposed to even pay, the documented ones, they also deduct from it on a monthly basis, telling them they are going to use it for empowerment of people in their constituency. That's the salary they are supposed to pay with people working with them. So it's really a very messy thing. And these people, with due respect to them, I think they are not godly, they are not God-fearing in what they do. You get somebody who's working for you doing the work, and what you are supposed to pay the person, you should change the person. And I think the problem is also the fact that the management of the National Assembly in terms of documentation is also not really very thorough in the way they carry out these things. And I know for sure, and if you investigate, you will discover there are persons who don't even know the road to National Assembly, that they have their names on the payroll of National Assembly. Staff. I'm not just being speculative about these things. It's been there for years. And that is another aspect, not to even talk of the way they manage the appropriation, the budget, the way we prepare the padding and so on. So I think, unfortunately for us, we concentrate more on the executive in terms of issue of corruption, the way these things are happening. But I think the National Assembly, and that's why for me, when the former president Obasanjo was saying that if people had followed the foundation he laid, we would not have been here. And I said, well, we do respect to him in Africa. We don't disrespect our elders. They know more than us. They've been around more than us. And I quite agree with him that he laid the foundation. Where I disagree with him is that his foundation is what they are following, the foundation he laid. And that's why we are here. He laid the foundation of corruption in the National Assembly. And that's why things have gotten to this point, that things are very bad. Get in touch with people who are working there. as aides to some of our legislators. You'll be shocked at the revelation. And these people are just like slaves to them. And so, if we concentrate on the salary and the allowances, fine, we are talking about it. But even those salaries and allowances, when you look at it, they are supposed to pay domestic staff, they are supposed to pay their aides, and it's part of what has been calculated.
Yeah.
Go and find out. Is it what they are given that they pay these people? And that's the reality. So that is why you find people who are there who are also, you say, that you are working in National Assembly, I think you are gainfully employed. They say, well, I'm employed, but not gainfully. I'm working and my boss is still collecting a percentage of what I'm supposed to get. Where they are supposed to take 6 staff, some of them even only take 2 or 3. The remaining one to collect the money, put the names of their family members. Some of them that are even schooling abroad, who are students abroad, we have it on their payroll and we still get it to them. And these are conversations that sometimes I ask myself, we discuss these things on television, we go to programs, we discuss these things, but at the end of the day, what do we get from it? Because
of course, really strong revelations. I do hope, I think of course, the weather might actually be interfering with the network a bit, but when you hear these kinds of things, it's troubling. Mr. Olasukpo is raising a really, cogent question when he's saying, we discuss these issues on television, we talk about it in forum meetings. When will we begin to see the change that will be implemented? I hope network is, allows us to have the conversation. Okay, Mr. Olasukpo, the really serious concerns that you're raising this morning, because I was about to turn that as a question to you. You were talking about how is it that in forums, on television programs like this, we keep on raising these issues, but it's like, nobody's listening to actually implement the change. If this has, gone on as far back as the first, democratically elected government in Nigeria, why is the corruption growing? But, in recent years, Nigerians are more aware of the decadence that is happening in all of these establishments. How come we are not able to find the systems to hold them accountable? Why has our voting style not changed for us to see more credible persons in that position? So there's a lot of questions. Because you yourself, you were raising it. How then do you think we are going to achieve change if we keep talking about it, yet there's little or nothing, done differently?
Yes, thank you very much. One of the things I've always been advocating for is that the civil society organizations have special roles to play in all of this. Yes, we know we have the mass media, the press, they are always there. But I also know the challenges some of people working there are going through. People work in a lot of media organizations. They have it for 3, 4, 5 months. I know of one very popular media organization that they will go and meet their director that said, we've not been paid for 6 months, and they will tell you that, sorry, the ID card of this organization you carry, it opens a lot of doors for you and you get a lot of opportunities. You should make do with that, or else you let us have our ID card, which we also close the door for opportunity. So the people in the media also have their limitations, but I think the civil society organizations, yes, they have their own challenges too, because the situation has been so bad that nobody is insulated from this issue of corruption and so on. But to a large extent, I think they can still do a lot of work. For instance, look at the issue of palliatives. I've also been advocating for it that if you give palliatives to people, let the federal government also set aside some percentage of what they are spending to engage civil society organizations across the country in the different geopolitical zones to be the ones who will monitor and also provide reports to government on how well or otherwise these things are being done. If nobody listens to that, I've been making that something. Rather, they will say, oh, the civil society organizations are corrupt. The reality is that most of the good things you get from the civil society organizations are the things that are funded by international organizations, development agencies who give us the money. But realistically, these are things that we should be doing for ourselves. Civil society organizations are not enemies of the government. They are not antagonists of the government. They are not opposition parties to those who are in power. Rather, they can serve as a big bridge and provide the necessary feedback to the government about the activities and what the people are actually getting from them. That is the way I see it. Civil society organizations have a role to play, and I think the government should also support them and just get closer to them and see how they can collaborate on this type of thing.
Mr. Olasupo, I would like to ask, because you've mentioned a lot of things that are mind-blowing, and the question is, how tedious is the work of the lawmakers in the National Assembly that will determine the amount of money they take home and the type of aid? How tedious is their job description that they will earn up to? RMFC said 1.6 million, and a sitting senator said
1.6 million is different from 1,063,000.
And a sitting senator said 21 million. So one will want to ask, what is the intricacies? How serious, how tedious, how strenuous is their job they do? Some senators just sit for a whole 4 term without saying anything.
Sleeping and nodding.
At the end of the month, they go home with whatever salary they are getting. How tedious is their job description that they have to earn that amount of money? Oh, I think there's... Mr. Lasupa, are you with me?
Yes, I'm with you. I got you. Yes, thank you very much. Well, you see, in sociology, we look at the different services people are rendering, and based on that, you use it to determine whether this is tedious or more than this or that, and so on. And there are also issues of risk and challenges associated with what individuals do. So it's a lot of permutations here and there to determine what is tedious and what is not tedious. But the reality about some of the people in the National Assembly, like you rightly put it, is that some of them are just there as passive observers, just to be there to monitor and be watching what is going on. In the school, when we were in the, we call them backbenchers. They're always at the back, sitting at the back of the classroom, contributing nothing, and at the end of the day, their take-home is guaranteed. I've had a lot of personal experiences with people who have served in the National Assembly in the past, and I think one thing that thrives very much in the National Assembly is the issue of, yes, it's not the standardized blackmail you have, but some of them are people that they tell you, if you don't do this for us, then we do this to make life difficult for you. That's the issue of the oversight function I mentioned the other time.
Yeah.
Because their role is to make laws, and then in consonance with whatever the executive have been mandated to do, they are supposed to have oversight functions. And that is by ensuring that, okay, what we told the executive to do, the executive is supposed to be checks and balances, so that we don't concentrate absolute powers in the hands of the executive. But unfortunately, they lash up to that in the guise of going for oversight functions, like I said, to harass people and terrorize them and blackmail them. If you don't do this, you are in this and that. Not only that, you also have issues of even the appropriation when it's being done. If you are close to the National Assembly, you know it's a very serious period in the National Assembly. People lobby that I want this to be given to those in ministry, and those in the ministry or agencies have been told that this is coming to you, you are supposed to do this and that, and then the person, the contractor that will do the job, will be provided by the person who lobbied for that to be put in the budget of the ministry and so on. And so, well, most often when you see them inviting the head of an agency to sit down and they become critical, why are you doing that and doing that? Just know that it's just because the person is not playing ball and also agreeing to maybe some of the terms and so on. And like you said, their work, it's not as if we expect them to be all-knowing, that they are custodian of all the knowledge of everything. And that's why they are given aides. They are allowed to have aides who will give them support in doing what they are supposed to do. If there is a bill coming to the National Assembly, whether you are the one bringing the bill or somebody else bringing it, you have those who can help you conduct research into these things and then give you all the facts about it so that we have robust conversation and you'll be able to contribute. But I've also been to the National Assembly to participate in public hearing, and at the end of the day, what we discussed, what was presented, and what they eventually came up with is not a representation of what we discussed. And I will give you an example. This is very easy for you to go and find out. Some years ago, there was this organization called Disclose that came and was going to come on board for security and so on. I was working on the Nigeria Stability and Reconciliation Program then as the Security and Governance Manager, funded by the UK government. And one of the things was that, okay, in Nigeria we have this challenge, the major challenge of cohesion, synergy among our security and response agencies. And the general idea was that while we were working on that to bring these agencies to collaborate and work well together, that at that time coming up with another agency might not be the right thing. Proliferation of agencies, instead, let's see if we can strengthen the ones we have on ground and so on. And then we went with some members of civil society to attend that sitting at the National Assembly, the public hearing. Out of the 23 presentations of the Peace Corps, the lawyer, Barrister Femi Falana, and I think there was hardly any other agency. The police was there to oppose it, civil defense was there, Ministry of Justice was there, civil society. About 23 of the 7 presentations were made, and everybody was, at least about 95% of those who were there were against the establishment of that thing. And what happened at the end of the day? The National Assembly still went ahead to approve that thing, passed it, signed, passed the legislation on it, and moved it to the presidency for signature. It was because President Buhari looked at it, and I think he also had people who advised him that this would not be the way to go, that he did not sign that. And that made me to say, well, why do you have public hearing if not to also carry the thinking, the position, the feelings, and what the people are saying about it? And yet, you went ahead to do your own. While I was there that day at the National Assembly, there was a man seated beside me. I never knew him, and I don't want to be speculative, but he whispered to me that day that don't mind these people, they will pass this thing, that some of them have been given 20 million naira on this thing. I never knew the man. I just looked at him myself. One of our comrades too, Jaye Gaskia, we were there together, and we just looked at each other. And we never believed the guy, but at the end of the day, what happened? The National Assembly said it should be passed, and I was shocked when that thing went to the presidency for the president to append the signature, and he refused to. And you can imagine, those of us who are agitating that this security agency, we don't need proliferation of them. It's not as if we do not appreciate how serious the situation in this country was. But then, I will give you an example. When in 2016 there was the bombing in Yanya by Boko Haram that killed a lot of people, you discover that every uniformed person in Nigeria who was around that place, the military or police or you are going to work, they immediately responded and took action, trying to see what they could do to mitigate the situation. But after we did analysis of what happened, one thing became very clear. Nobody was actually in control. People were just trying to do what they felt they could do, given the civilians they found themselves. And one of the things we were agitating for and we were promoting through the project I was working on was that in this type of situation, what do we do? And it was agreed then by all the 17 security and response agencies that in future, if we have an emergency like that, the agency that has the direct responsibility on that type of situation should be the one, even if it is the most junior officer in that agency that was on ground, because of professionalism and the experience, that person should take charge. Even a general in the army will subscribe to whatever directive will be given by those persons. And over time, you'll be seeing this type of thing. I'll give you an example. If an auto crash happens today, if the Federal Road Safety goes there, they rescue people, but you will discover that all the materials they are able to get from there, the telephone, even money, loads, and everything, they pack them and get to the police, take an inventory, hand it over to the police. That is their bit. There are things others do that only the police can go to court on those things. They still hand it over to them. These things are there. So our National Assembly, rather than being patriotic, I'm sorry if this is, but I don't know of any other word to use. They don't put Nigerians first in some of the decisions they take. Maybe it's because they spend so much on their campaigns. And even within the National Assembly, within the same party, you also have internal wrangling. Go and find out the processes of getting their principal officers. You will discover that the man who said it goes on with 21 million also said that as an ordinary member of the Senate. That's what And so what does those who are principal officers go on with? And you can see there are special privileges those ones also enjoy. They have accommodation for the Senate president. They have for the speaker. You see their convoy when they are going out, and they have more aids. Opportunities are given to them more than the other persons there. Well, it's not like that in other places, but at least let them give it a human face. The reason why I also agree with those who are saying we are sitting on a keg of gunpowder is that, you see, somebody once said that there is nothing bad in being poor if all other persons around you are poor. But poverty becomes confoundingly inconvenient if you are within the same environment, within sphere, and you find it difficult to feed yourself, and you see somebody throwing away money anyhow, as if we are not products of the same country. And talking about it, a man who labors seriously, go to work, go to the bus stop, so struggle to get to office and whatever, at the end of the month, he goes away, goes home with about 70 or 80,000 naira, if he's lucky to get that. And somebody who sits in the confines of air condition, and the number of times they go on recess, their weekends, they don't do anything, and all that. And even some of the, I remember in 2004, I organized training for a particular committee of the House of Representatives. In the choice of where they would stay, they told me the hotel, my office booked for them, they did not want it. So we have to move from hotel of then 11,000 naira to hotel of 32,000 naira per night for each of them. And these persons came after everything we agreed with them that, please, things are expensive here, this is our budget.
When you hear these kinds of stories, actually, you know, he's giving you real-time intel as the interaction, with the interaction of persons in these different offices. And it just took our mind back, to the words of Suleiman, who said, I mean, as an ordinary member of the, the House of Assembly, the National Assembly, I beg your pardon, he's earning 21 million. I remember that former Senator Shehu Sani had actually said during his time he can tell you it was 13 million. Someone sitting 13. He said 13, and then someone who's sitting now and says 21.
21 million.
We have you on back now, Mr. Olashupo. You can go ahead, but just before then, let me add something that I want you to also elaborate on. You were talking about the responsibility of CSOs in helping us, cleanse out some of the issues that we have in the National Assembly. SERAP is one of the CSOs that we can relatively say has been functional. We see them going against the National Assembly, going against the federal government every now and then. I personally like to say they have more cases in court against the federal government than any other institution. But how many of those cases do they usually get, positive responses for? Yet again, with regards to this remuneration issue, SERAP is asking that, Senator Godswill Akpabio, who is the president of the National Assembly, and Tajuddin Abbas, who is in charge of the House of Representatives, they should bring it out in black and white what it takes them to run these assemblies every month. What is your running cost? Put it on, put it in pen and paper, black and white. Let us all see it. And they're saying that if both assemblies do not concur, they will be facing legal action. This is something we see SERAP say and do every now and then. Okay, first of all, what is your thoughts? The functionality of SERAP so far, they have tried. What are your thoughts? And do you think that the National Assembly and the House of Representatives will budge to this particular call? Because we would say that SERAP is making this call on behalf of Nigerians.
Hello?
Are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, you can go ahead.
You were talking about SERAP.
Yes.
Yes, SERAP is a good example of what our CSOs should be and what they are doing. But then you also look at the process of getting accountability from the people. When some of these cases go to court, for years they are there, and so the person you even want to hold responsible has even lost his seat. Another round of election has come. He's no longer in that position. So at the end of the day, your exercise is infertility. And it's also one of the things I agree with the team led by Professor Ibrahim Jibo concerning the presentation they made after the protest, making recommendations to the government that when it comes to certain issues, I think we should have special courts. especially on cases of corruption in Nigeria, so that they could be able, they could deal with some of those cases as quickly as possible.
Of course, the question of special courts always arises. We've talked about how that should really help us in the process of getting justice for a lot of things that we see in the country. If another court that was not superimposed by these same authorities, remember that it was just recently that we had the 21 judges of the Supreme Court actually implemented. Yeah. Okay, Mr. Olasupo is back. Please go ahead. We lost you for a moment.
Yes, that the man was said to have stolen about 68 billion naira as Accountant General. Immediately, EFCC picked him. I think he dropped about 3 billion out of the money. The case has been in court since then. The man has died now. What happens to that case? That's the end of it. He was not the only one that stole that money. The other ones are now, at least death has been able to cover up for them. The one after him, I think Idris, the one from Kano also, was said to have stolen between 80 and 110 billion naira. And a lot of funny things. When I went to Kano, I met the lawyer who had to take up one of the cases against him, and some of the things he said about that case. Because when you see somebody going insisting that he wanted to marry a 16-year-old girl, and you are using a check of 250 million to the girl to go and buy a house of her choice anywhere and so on. These are things that at the end of the day, these cases go to court. The last time Idris appeared in court, it was like a man who will die in the court there. They packaged him. He was on a wheelchair. They had crutches for him and whatever. Immediately he left the court. He didn't know that the camera was still following him. As he entered his house, he threw away those things, went to perform ablution, and went to perform to have his prayers. So people take us for granted in this country. And so SERAP is doing well, I agree, but we need to do more. If the process within, I think what SERAP is doing is good, but when you look at it and you start taking them to court on some of these things, it's like you are being reactive.
Proactive measures with courts. I hope network would allow Mr. Olasupo to tell us what exactly.
Mr. Olasupo has made mention a lot of things, and I'm wondering a lot of, because when you want to say Nigerians should get involved into the conversation, he had just made mention of how he went for a public hearing and they had an agreement of a particular,
and then the federal
government went ahead to do their own. And the question to ask is, at what point are we going to get it right from our lawmakers? At what point,
He's back on. Yes, we can hear you now. You were talking about, how SERAP can become more proactive than just reactive to some of these issues.
No, you see, CSOs also have their own areas of focus and specialization. If what SERAP is doing is the mandate they have, fine and beautiful. At least they are doing their bit. Others will also look at where they can take preventive measures. I think there are other organizations. There is one that I don't remember the name of the organization. Larry Suraj, one of our comrades, is heading that. There is another one, budget. This budget. They look at constituency projects, what has been done, what has not been done. And then that takes us to the people too themselves. They say the only way for evil to triumph is when all the good men stand aloof and do nothing. If you are given the information that somebody is supposed to do something in your community, do not wait for that person. Oh, when he's around, or you send a delegation, sir, we are happy that this has been approved for our community and you are the one in charge. Please, we are waiting for the time you are going to start this. Let me give you an instance. At a time in one of the African countries, when it was discovered that legislators, politicians were not doing the right thing, what did they do at the community level? And that's something I tried to establish around 2003-2004 in some of the local governments across the country when I was working with Frederick Ibert Foundation as their program manager. That at the grassroots level, now that the local government autonomy is coming, the people don't have any excuse for not putting to task their representatives. If the local government, you have your elected representatives, the day they are going to read their budget, the chairman is, let it be celebrated in the local government. Community people.
Of course, serious questions, serious issues that, Mr. Lashukwa is unearthing this morning, looking at local government autonomy, the involvement of the grassroots persons.
It has just, the conversation has just taken us
it just grows, and you get to see where how we can have more involvement in the parastatals of government that can now effect change. I don't know if, I don't know how bad the network. We have just a few more minutes to actually wrap up this conversation. Mr. Lashukwa, can you hear us? Mr. Lashukwa.
Let me just quickly conclude what I was saying.
Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead.
It's possible that in the local government, the projects the local government chairman tells you is going to do, let the CSO there get a list of these things. Maybe in that 1 year, it says it's going to carry out 6 projects or 12. Get a big billboard, put it in front of the entrance of that local government. The strategic places put there, and list these things and put them. After 6 months, you go back, check with him, have you done this? Because this we are living here, we know this is happening. So the ones that have been done, you tick them, the ones still there. So if by June, July, out of 12 things, you've only been able to do 2, and everybody coming to the local government, even the gate of the secretariat, see that these things are undone, it puts you on that. And if you continue that way, don't forget the opposition is there. They will capitalize on that to campaign and get you out of office. These are the ways that I think in our little ways we can put some light into the processes of accountability in governance.
Wow, process of accountability. So just in maybe another 2 minutes, one of the conversations we also wanted to look at, you talked about the judiciary in passing. Recently, we saw the president append to a 300% salary increase for judges, in the country. Now we're seeing, people earning as high as 21 million naira actually per month as salaries in the judiciary. Sorry. Now, what kind of impact are we expecting? Some of the allegations that we had peddled before was the fact that, they're not earning sufficiently enough. That's why they are susceptible to corruption in the phase of adjudicating their roles. Now that they have received the 300% increase, what is this in the best interest of the judiciary in Nigeria? And as opposed to the minimum wage and other things, do you think that this was a right call by the federal government?
My response to that will be from 2 angles. One, the reality is this: somebody who is corrupt, even if you give all the national budget of Nigeria to the person, a corrupt person will still be corrupt. Mm-hmm. But then I think we as a nation, we have a responsibility to make sure that we minimize this and at least work as much as possible that excuses for doing that is minimized or totally extirpated. And that is why I think to a large extent I support what the government has done, increasing, because, and that takes me to the second leg of what the judges are doing. I've had friends who are been in the judiciary. I've had people whose parents have been there and whatever. And I was in Plateau State some months ago and we were discussing this thing. And one of my colleagues on that trip, who happened to be the daughter of one of the judiciary persons, was telling me that there is nobody who can be a high court judge in Nigeria for 6-7 years that you will not have to have either a minor or major surgery on your wrist. In terms of the amount of writing and whatever they do. Secondly, that when you see people who are judges in Nigeria who have been there for 10 years or so, watch them very well. When they walk, there is a way they hunch their back that tells you that something is actually wrong. Sitting down for hours, and let's not forget, it's not the time they spend in the court that takes away their time. In fact, more of the work is when they now go back to the chambers or they get home, transcribing in longhand, writing all these judgments, and some of the judgments, if you listen to them, judgments that people read for over 3-4 hours, you know how many hours it must have taken them. And that's why you see sometimes they say, okay, this is a ruling on this, but the details of the judgment you are going to get later, because it takes weeks, days for them to do this thing. So for me, I think, unlike National Assembly, where many people are passive observers and go home with fat salaries, I think That is my opinion. I align with at least what the government has done for the judiciary. And I think, like I said, yes, we need to bring down corruption. Nowhere in the world have they been able to fight corruption and gotten it or finally eradicated it. Even in those places where you have dictators killing people that, oh, for being corrupt, we get you killed. By the time you also look at their lifestyles, you also know that they are corrupt too. But to minimize it, I think we need to do the right thing that it's supposed to do. And that is why I think some of the policies the government is coming up with, if eventually they mature, we'll be able to. All this student loan we had, the issue of credit, consumer credit thing. So I told people that gradually the present administration is taking us to the life in America and Europe, whereby you will not suffer for the basic things you need, but you are not going to have savings. Because as you pay mortgage on your back, on your house, on your car, the television in your house and everything, so that when Super Eagles is playing, your children don't have to be peeping from other person's window to watch the match. You have the television, but you are paying. It's through the consumer credit you get it. So you don't have money lying in your account doing nothing. You have these basic things. So you need to work hard to be able to survive and get the basic things of life.
So quickly, as opposed to the minimum wage, it was easy for them to agree on a 300% increment for, the judiciary. But I mean, in the opinion of most Nigerians, a flimsy 70,000 naira for the bulk of Nigerians. What is your thoughts when you look at the increment for judiciary and the increment for workers in Nigeria generally?
I told you in sociology, and that's how we started this conversation.
Yes, absolutely.
The responsibilities, your roles, will also dictate. The chances of a teacher in the classroom getting killed is lower than that of a military man who is facing Boko Haram in Sambisa Forest. So if such persons, you say it's a junior officer, earns more than the vice principal of a school and you want to use that, we should not just put things on paper and come to conclusions like that. Well, I think Juajero and his team, they did a good job trying to negotiate. These things are not easy. For government to know that we are in serious financial crisis, but we still have to do this just to be able to. The thing is that these conversations are always open. Negotiation is part of the trade union mandate, and they continue to respond to this. And don't forget, unlike in the past, that they have 5 years for minimum wage review. I think the president has now said, okay, every 3 years, we have to sit down and look at it.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Olasukpo. Of course, we've been discussing with him this morning. Great conversations. I would say very revelatory, and it will spike you to think in all the directions. I like that topic, that conversation on the physiology of, awarding a wage. Thank you so much, Mr. Bash Olasukpo, for coming on Rise and Shine this Monday morning. We appreciate you for your time.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much.
All right. Well, this is all we can actually say. We can't add anything to the conversation that we have had with Mr. Bash Olasukpo. You have a take-home, and it should impress upon the decisions that you make this week as a Nigerian. But that's where myself and Ime Emmanuel will be closing the curtains this morning and Rise and Shine. My name is Uyayeme, and we'll definitely see you again tomorrow.
My name is Ime Emmanuel. Do have a beautiful day.